Gothmog, Lord of Balrog's High Captain of Angband. He was the greatest Balrog ever to walk Middle-earth.
And the Lord of the Balrogs, Gothmog, used a great black axe.
You mean to tell me they got one of these guys carrying an axe? But they covered out with that. Imagine Bell.
Morgoth is to Tolkien what Lucifer is to Christianity, the most powerful.
This is one on a completely different level. Questions start to raise that are very disturbing. What did it eat? How did it survive? How did this thing get created?
Forget Smaug, forget Drogon, forget Balerion the Black Dread. He towered over Thangorodrim's peaks.
Saturn was referred to as I said, the Lord of the Rings.
If you think Shelob was big, you have to see the biggest spider ever lived in Middle-earth. Ungoliant, mother of all spiders.
There, Gandalf sacrifices himself fighting the Balrog, further giving our heroes a fighting chance. His mission wasn't complete, so he's resurrected, symbolized by him wearing white.
There's a little bit of validity there, I ain't gonna lie.
Welcome back to another creepy video. It's your boy Jet Ski Chuck, aka Ace Leader Jet. Might just have you rethink your entire reality. These disturbing discoveries cause you to keep your head on a straight swivel. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, hit that bell, and turn notifications to all so you don't miss a video or a live. Let's dive in. Hyper mode, activate. Set location to Middle-earth. Go!
Sauron is clearly based off Satan, the great Dark Lord who spawns evil armies, bent upon the destruction of Christian civilization. Mordor looks a lot like our images of hell, and the volcano Mount Doom gets even more hellish. The name Mordor comes from the Old English word for murder. In the same way Sauron corrupts minds and hearts in the Free Kingdoms, Satan quietly needles into people's souls, turning them evil. The story of the Ring is fundamentally one of Christian humility. The Ring is so much power and corruptive influence that the only way to survive it is to give it to the most humble creatures. A hobbit, in the same way a Christian's quest is to avoid power's corrupting influence, and that humility is the most noble of virtues, and pride the worst sin in Christian philosophy.
The Lord of the Rings is more than just a captivating story of hobbits, wizards, and epic battles. It is a powerful allegory of the Christian journey. At its core, both stories are about the struggle between good and evil, and the ultimate triumph of sacrificial love over darkness. In both, the central figure embodies selflessness, bravery, and compassion. Just as the Fellowship must endure trials and tribulations on their quest, so too must we face our own challenges in life, always striving to become Christ-like.
Saturn was referred to as I said, the Lord of the Rings. Women were told in ancient Israel to listen to their god, so they wore an ear ring. Men were to get married before their god, so they wore a wedding ring. Consequently, the kings were to get to be crowned before their god Saturn, so they wore the round corona, the ring, Lord of the Rings. Consequently, black was their color associated with the planet Saturn. We have different planets and different colors associated with the different planets coming from the ancient world, but black was the color associated with the planet Saturn. So therefore all the priests would wear black robes, just as Catholic priests wear black robes, judges wear black robes, rabbis wear black robes. Young people graduating from university and college, they come out wearing a black robe. Black robes. Somebody better go back and do your homework. You know what a black robe represents and why judges wear black robes? And consequently, when you graduate from university, it's a Saturnalian event. Saturn is the great teacher, the inhibitor. Incidentally, Saturn was referred to as the inhibitor, one who holds you back and teaches you a lesson. So he holds you back and inhibits you and inhibits your movement. He arrests your movement. So consequently, the Hebrews said, since he's always inhibiting you, and since we go to Tepel on Saturn's day, why don't we just do nothing on Saturday? And that's why today there's something called a Sabbath, in which you do nothing from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Is called Sabbath. The Sabbath is actually based on a Phoenician word, Shabbat. And Shabbat is based on an old ancient Sumerian word for Saturn. Saturn was called Shabbat, and the worship of Saturn was called the Sabbath. So consequently, when you hear that there's a very important occasion, the Sabbath, it's very important if you're worshiping the planet Saturn. Wake up. It's very important if you're worshiping the moon to have your holidays after sundown. Saturn was referred to as El in the old Phoenician language, El. El was the planet Saturn. Today, if you are promoting the worship of Saturn, you're referred to as an elder. How did you get to be an elder? You got elected. How did you get elected, and what comes from being elected? Well, you become now one of the elites. You're one of the elites because you're now elevated in society. Look up these words and these terms. Saturn was
Lord of the Rings. Keep your head on a straight swivel, y'all. It's getting dark on these waters. You really be getting charged up like that. You know, you don't need ley lines if you connected to the Most High. I was thinking about that the other day. I'd be getting charged up out of nowhere through that Ruach. I'm like, man, I don't need no ley lines. I got a direct connection. That's why I got that fire at all times. You know, just be inside me, feeling like I can just kick a wall down, you know? It's that Ruach.
Lord of the Rings, because for those that don't know, Tolkien was a very faithful Catholic, had a tremendous faith.
Son became a priest,
and his son became a priest. Absolutely, yeah. He was adopted in kind of in a way by a priest after his mom had converted to Catholicism, and so they kind of lost a lot of their friends. So the Oratorians in England had a big influence on his life. But to me, like learning about the Lord of the Rings and beginning to read it kind of was always second to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the Chronicles of Narnia from C.S. Lewis, who was also a very famous Christian apologist in the Anglican Church, a convert from atheism. But a lot of people, and so that to me was always kind of the intro is you reading the Lord of the Rings and all those books of the Chronicles of Narnia, and then eventually getting to the longer and more intensive and maybe less written for children, I guess, Lord of the Rings books. But I always find it interesting that Tolkien was one of the people that helped to convert C.S. Lewis to Christianity, and one of the people that he knew, one of the few Christians that he knew who were academics, because he was a linguist and had all sorts of kind of amazing academic pedigree. Tolkien did, so that was one of the kind of the linchpins for perhaps one of the most important apologists, explainers of the Christian faith of the 20th century was his friendship with J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, so the fact that they come out with anything, I'm down to watch. You know, it's been a minute since I've seen Lord of the Rings. We just been on this dragon kick. You know, I'm like, what better time to see what's really going on with Lord of the Rings? What truth is in that movie? Because you know they talking about dragons. So how can there be any type of correlation to the ancient world that we live in today? Take me to Dark Waters 9. It's time to unveil some disturbing discoveries on Dark Waters 9.
Alright guys, we're in the submersible. Let's see what we can dig up.
You guys thought he was bad? With his one ring to rule them all in his Nazgul? Yeah, meet his master, Morgoth, the greatest threat to ever face Tolkien's world. Morgoth is to Tolkien what Lucifer is to Christianity, the most powerful son of Eru-Ilúvatar the Creator, who is the ultimate cause of all the discord in Middle-earth. He is the one who created the orcs. He is the one who first tempted men to evil. His real name is Melkor, and he was only named Morgoth by the elves after he poisoned and two trees of light in Valinor, Laurelin and Telperion. That's an oversimplification. He only stabbed the trees. It was Ungoliant, the primordial spider born from the very darkness of Arda itself, who then drained all the life and light from the trees and poisoned it with her evil. This is her, and there's Morgoth. Yeah, I'm planning to do a whole other video on Ungoliant herself, because she's not really an ally to Morgoth, and she terrifies me more than anything else in all of Tolkien's mythos. But fun fact, she's the mother of Shelob. But like I said, you thought Sauron had a badass army? Let's take a look at what Morgoth was working with. We're obviously talking the classics, orcs, trolls, evil men and whatnot, but let's look at some others. Speaking of Sauron, Sauron was Morgoth's right-hand man. An evil, cunning sorcerer who would eventually take his fallen master's place as the primary threat in Tolkien's mythos. We know enough about him, let's move on to some others. Morgoth's other closest lieutenant, pretty much on par with Sauron in terms of status in the army, Gothmog, Lord of the Balrogs. Gothmog, the High Captain of Angband, was actually responsible for 2 kings of the Noldor being the type of elf that we normally follow throughout these stories. Glaurung, the Great Worm, the very first dragon bred in the pits of Angband by Morgoth. Being the first dragon, Glaurung was wingless, but is still pretty much a nuclear warhead in Morgoth's army. Draugluin, the first of the werewolves bred by Morgoth and the father of Karkaroth. Morgoth has a thing about breeding fucked up shit. He is likely the ancestor of all wargs, and he dwelt in Taul and Gauroth with his master Sauron. Speaking of his son, this is Karkaroth, the Red Maw, also known as Anfauglia, the Jaws of Thirst.
The Red Maw?
Karkaroth is the greatest werewolf to ever walk Middle-earth. The great beast who guarded the gates of Angband, he bit off Beron's hand, which was clasping a Silmaril, and for a short time his immense power was amped with the power of a Silmaril. But I've saved the best for last, Ancalagon the Black, the greatest dragon in all of Tolkien's work. Forget Smaug, forget Drogon, forget Balerion the Black Dread, he towered over Thangorodrim's peaks. Ancalagon almost turned the tides of the War of Wrath in Morgoth's favour. It was said that his coming was accompanied by great thunder, lightning and a tempest of fire. Eventually he was slain by Elrond's father Eärendil, and the death of Ancalagon the Black marked the end of Morgoth's resistance. You guys thought he was bad, with his one ring to rule them all?
How deep does this Lord of the Rings lore go? That giant dragon? Weren't we just looking into dragons earlier? That's what I'm talking about. Let's check this video out as a quick recap so we're all on the same page of dragons.
Do you still believe that volcanoes erupt because liquid hot magma is bubbling up from the Earth's core? Well, if you do, you should stick around. And if you like dragons, you should stick around too. You see, once you realize you don't live where you thought you lived, it causes you to question a lot of things you thought you always knew. And volcanoes, they're no different. So I went volcano hunting because I wanted to see what I could see. And I went to Mount Rainier in Washington. And right away I noticed something.
Think Lord of the Rings dragons, Game of Thrones dragons, but think of them on a giant scale. Giant.
You might not see it right away, but I sure did. But take a look, and then I'll show you. How about now? Is it coming clear now? So I thought, maybe this is just a coincidence. Maybe this actually is just pareidolia. So I went to another volcano, and I found another face that looked pretty similar, down to its eyes, and even nose, and mouth. And when you compare 2 different volcanoes side by side, faces are clearly there, but this isn't even the half of it. Because I kept hunting, and I kept going to volcanoes. And I kept finding remnants of dragons. Do you see this face here, down to its eye, long beak, and its whole dragon body? Again, this isn't even the end of it. This would have been its stomach, where it would have held a whole lot of its fire acid. Next, I went to Mount Vesuvius and found dragon remnants. This one literally looked like it died here. You can see its head here and its mouth, and like it spewed its acid to create this hole. And just for a closer look, there's clearly petrified dragon head there. And when I show you this next clip talking about bombardier beetles and how they literally have two different types of stomach acid, when they combine, can combust. Then
we're going to get into those beetles later on in the video. We already covered them, but check out this head real quick. Like, I'm looking at this, and one of you guys said in the comments, Lord of the Rings, and I'm thinking, damn, but the size comparison probably wouldn't even match up. Like this, it would probably fit on its eye, low key, compared to the ones that we talk about in all the movies and shows. This is one on a completely different level. Questions start to raise that are very disturbing. What did it eat? How did it survive? How did this thing get created? What would this thing eat? Drop your answers in the comments below. How would this survive? How many of them were there? How big would the earth have to be to support these monstrosity size dragons? How disturbing is that?
Then I'll give you my full theory on what volcanoes really are.
And if you can wrap your head around the fact that dragons actually existed, which in my opinion they fully did, then taking that step to think that they could maybe breathe fire, isn't that crazy when you watch this? This is literally just two ingredients being mixed together with a little bit of water added, and it combusts into fire. It's just glycerin and potassium.
That's all it takes? You mean to tell me a dragon couldn't have that in his stomach, or probably his stomach, mix them right up at his throat and spew that out? It started fire-breathing dragons. Oh my goodness.
They literally mix and they turn to fire. And there's an animal that does this. The bombardier beetle literally does this. As a self-defense, it mixes two different liquids together that when shot out becomes a hot, burning hot acid.
We got to look into that. We got to actually look at the chemistry and biology of this and see if it actually holds any type of precedence. We're going to get to the bottom of that.
Now, is it really that far-fetched to believe that maybe a much more advanced killing machine could have two liquids that when come together just happen to combust to create fire, like the glycerin and potassium?
Now here's my theory and my speculation. And like I said, is it really that inconceivable that if a bombardier beetle can have two different liquids that when combined turn to acid, that a dragon could have the same thing? And when whatever killed them and petrified them, the insides all of a sudden came together and created a liquid hot magma.
Look how massive this dragon is. Where could this be at? I think this is in China. If you look at the Chinese zodiacs, all of them are real animals. The only one questionable one is the dragon. Why would they put everything else real? You got the pig, the rat, the donkey. They probably don't got those, but you know, I don't know which ones they got, but I know that they're all real besides the dragon. Snake, rat.
Sun came together and created a liquid hot magma. Because to me, that actually makes more sense. In volcanoes, they use these as scare tactics, just like they do a whole lot of other things like global warming and nuclear bombs and all sorts of things. I actually think it's a lot more likely that pre-flood animals got petrified and their insides remain active and sometimes bubble up. But as always, this is all for entertainment. I'm just a satire count here to make you laugh. Entertainment only.
That is just beyond fascinating. Every volcano now is under suspect. We need to jump on and see what they look like. I believe that there are different kinds. This world was so big, they probably each had their own names.
Look up the size of dragons in Lord of the Rings. Now, those dragons make these look small. Mate, what look small? What the? No, ain't no way. I'm about to look up right now. I've seen people comment about how big Lord of the Rings dragons are, but there's no way. What the? You're telling me that's Smaug? That's Smaug. Hold on, let me look how big Smaug is. Smaug is visualized in the Hobbit films as having an overall length of 427 feet, wingspan of 360 feet, and height of 60 feet. Bro, those are his wings are as wide as two and you're telling me this is small compared to these other dragons. Somebody capping. There ain't no way. What even is this? Oh, this is that Ancalagon dragon people have been talking about that's basically a fucking mountain. God, how do you fight that? Isn't this essentially classified as a natural disaster? Oh, not even natural. This is an unnatural disaster. What is that? Hold on, because now I gotta look up how big this thing is. So Ancalagon's size is not specified, but they believe it's colossal because he fell on these towers, and these towers were basically as big as mountain peaks. Nah. So I see why people say don't play with the Lord of the Rings. That franchise is not. Look up the size of dragons in Lord of the Rings. Now, those dragons make these.
Did you know that Ancalagon the Black, the largest and most powerful dragon in Tolkien's world, was defeated by Eärendil, who wore upon its head one of the 3 Silmarils?
I give you the light of Eärendil, our most beloved star.
He was a half-elf and was the father of Elrond, having both men and elves as ancestors.
How big was Ancalagon the Black? I'm gonna do this once and only once because I am tired of having these debates with people in the comments who for some reason are adamant that Ancalagon was some titanic beast who towered over the peaks of Thangorodrim and was some sort of continent-sized kaiju. So let me settle this once and for all. The answer to the question how big is Ancalagon the Black is definitively that we don't know. But, that being said, not only do I find the notion that Ancalagon the Black is larger than mountains to be implausible, I also find it practically impossible. So what do we know about this immense titanic dragon who flattened 3 mountains? Well, in the entirety of Tolkien's Legendarium, he is mentioned twice. In all of the books, he's mentioned twice. He is referenced in Lord of the Rings The Fellowship of the Ring when Gandalf says he has the hottest fire in all of Middle-earth. That quote doesn't really matter. Let's look at the other one. The other quote is in reference to the War of Wrath, the cataclysmic war that led to the defeat of Morgoth and brought the First Age of Middle-earth to a close. During the War of Wrath, Morgoth unleashed the winged dragons, and they fell upon the host of the Valar with a tempest of lightning and fire. And then, here's the quote, before the rising of the sun, Eärendil slew Ancalagon the Black, the mightiest of the dragon host, and cast him from the sky, and he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and they were broken in his ruin. That's it, that's all we know. We know that he is the mightiest of the dragons, we know he was cast from the sky, we know that he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and we know that he broke them in his ruin. Now what exactly was Thangorodrim? Well, Thangorodrim was a chain of 3 volcanic mountains, but not regular mountains. These 3 mountains were the tallest mountains in Middle-earth history, and they were made from the ash and the slag and the vast refuse from the tunneling of the underground fortress of Angband. How do mountains made from tunneling debris become volcanic? I don't know. How does one ring rule them all? Let's move on. Now this is where a lot of people start getting ideas. They say if Ancalagon broke the 3 biggest mountains in Middle-earth, he must be bigger than all 3 of those mountains. To which I respond, a meteor is not bigger than the area it impacts. A wrecking ball is not bigger than the building it demolishes. And also, it didn't say he destroyed them, it says he broke them. What I mean is, when I say I broke a glass, that does not mean that I necessarily destroyed it or crushed it or flattened it. It might mean that, but not necessarily. And also, in the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf says about his fight with the Balrog, I threw down my enemy and he fell from the high place and broke the mountainside where he smote it in his ruin. I highly doubt that the Balrog was bigger than the mountainside. So this is what I mean when I say I don't know how big Ancalagon was. No one does, and there is nothing in the text to support that he is titanic. It's all just inconclusive. So why did I say implausible if not practically impossible? Well, because why is he the only one? Why is there just one dragon who is magnitudes bigger than all of the others? That doesn't make much sense to me. But then again, I don't know, so maybe he is or maybe he isn't, but the point is, no one knows. So next time anyone tries to tell you Ancalagon is definitively this big or this big, tell them they're wrong. The answer is, you don't know.
So I found this dragon size chart on Google, and it does a pretty good job giving you a size comparison of a regular human all the way up to the size of Smaug from Lord of the Rings, well, specifically from The Hobbit. And this is useful because you get to see how small we are just compared to Smaug, and that's important. Because this is Smaug compared to apparently the biggest dragon in the Lord of the Rings. On top of that, we can also compare Smaug's size to other dragons of other media, because they have, I believe, Falkor from The Never Ending Story. I could be wrong. Draco from, I believe, Dragonheart. They even got Alduin in there and Toothless. Now you see how insignificant we look just next to all these dragons and mainly Smaug? Imagine being next to any one of these dragons, and I can't even like imagine this in my brain. This media I can think of that gives me an idea of the scale of those creatures next to us is the Monwa, her son. This dude is basically isekai into this other world, and there are like gargantuan creatures. Like, I don't know if Ancalagon can fly, but if he does, this is what I would visualize it would look like. Basically like watching a mountain fly overhead. Now, what's kind of funny about this is that somebody told me in the comments that when he got into his first battle, he died. So that's kind of hilarious, because you're this big and you lost your first battle. Granted, that makes me wonder, what the fuck did he lose to?
If you thought that Smaug was big, you have to see the biggest dragon ever lived in Middle-earth. Ancalagon the Black's history is largely intertwined with the broader narrative of the First Age of Middle-earth and the conflicts between the forces of good and evil. He was bred and raised by Morgoth in the depths of Angband, the fortress of the Dark Lord. Ancalagon likely remained hidden until Morgoth deemed it necessary to unleash him during the climactic War of Wrath. As for whether Ancalagon is more powerful than Smaug, it's a matter of debate among Tolkien fans. Both dragons are incredibly formidable in their own right, but they exist in different contexts within Tolkien's mythology. Ancalagon is depicted as a primordial force of destruction, while Smaug is a more individualized character with his own motivations and personality. In terms of sheer size and the scale of devastation they could cause, Ancalagon is often considered to be more powerful. However, Smaug's cunning and intelligence make him a unique and memorable antagonist in The Hobbit. Ultimately, it's difficult to directly compare the two, as they inhabit separate eras and serve different narrative purposes within Tolkien's works.
Yes, I agree. And Ancalagon from the Lord of the Rings is most definitely past Black Dragon level for Monster Hunter. Granted, the term Black Dragon level is something like we have the Phantom made up. I think the actual term, actual category is first class. Okay, it's actually two terms. The first one is forbidden monsters. The second one is dangerous first class monsters. Fatalis Trio, Dire Moralis, and Elatrion fit into that category. And these are known to be the most powerful, the most mysterious, and the most dangerous monsters in the lore of the Monster Hunter universe. The term Black Dragon comes from the fact that all of them have the title Black somewhere in their description or their name. Now the title Dangerous First Class Monsters has been extended to monsters like Safi Jiva, Disu Fiora, and Mephistofelin, which are all also considered worldwide threats in the universe of Monster Hunter. And Ancalagon not only makes them look like ants, it took the power of essentially gods to take this thing out. Firstly, the fact that Ancalagon could fly is just OD. Something that big, as big as mountains flying, I don't even know how we would fight that in Monster Hunter. And then on top of that, the only thing that was known to be able to damage and defeat this dragon Ancalagon was the weapon that was used by this man named Arundel, the Silmaril, which was only able to defeat Ancalagon because it had the power to basically burn away anything that was evil. So it really wasn't even a weapon because you could only use it on something that was essentially evil. In Monster Hunter, we don't have that. Our Dragon Raisers, our Dragonators probably wouldn't even be able to touch nor damage Ancalagon. Also, even though Fatalis isn't even the strongest Fatalis in the trio, he was still considered the basically god of monsters. He was able to burn a whole kingdom in one fell swoop. This attack, Elatrion's Escantan Judgment, and Safijiba's Emperor Star, these are the strongest attacks we've seen in Monster Hunter, and they wouldn't hold a candle to what Ancalagon could do. One of Ancalagon's hands could crush the entire kingdom by itself. His flames would probably burn an entire region by themselves. If he wanted to, he probably could slam his hands into the ground and create earthquakes. This thing would bring terror to the Monster Hunter world like we had never seen before. The Fatalis pretty much makes all monsters in the immediate area run for their lives. Everything in existence would run from Ancalagon. The only one I could say probably would be able to at least try to contend with Ancalagon is White Fatalis, just because when he arrived, he caused a black hole and solar eclipse. It's not even stated that he directly caused that, it's alluded to. But just based on pure size and strength alone, I don't think anything's touching this guy. Yes, I agree.
Behemoth might give him a run for his money on Monster Hunter. Just give me my great sword. We'll put in easy work. Can you just imagine you're riding that thing, and you're commanding it, turn left. It's, what do you do in this scenario but try to go underground? That's the only thing you can do in this scenario is try to go underground. Is what type of spear, what type of javelin, you gotta really, and no telling how tough the armor is, dragon scales, that might be tougher than steel.
Balerion is the largest dragon in the Game of Thrones universe. Smaug is 4 times bigger than him. Now that part, I'm not entirely sure how accurate that is, because the length for both of these dragons keeps flip-flopping for me whenever I look it up. Actually, let me see if they have an official length for Vhagar. Visual effects producer Nakia Ford confirmed in The House That Dragons Built docuseries that Vhagar's enormous size is around 500 feet long, whereas Drogon was estimated to be about 200. Some people say that Smaug. Balerion is the largest dragon in the Game of Thrones universe. Smaug is 4 times bigger than him. Now that part, I'm not entirely sure how accurate that is, because the length for both of these dragons keeps flip-flopping for me whenever I look it up. Actually, let me see if they have an official length for Vhagar. Visual effects producer Nakia Ford confirmed in The House That Dragons Built docuseries that Vhagar's enormous size is around 500 feet long, whereas Drogon was estimated to be about 230 feet long. Okay, so they seem pretty massive compared to, I believe, their book counterparts. Smaug is estimated to be 427 feet long in the film. Now, in terms of the book, I've heard some people say that Smaug was 70 feet. When I looked it up, they said he was 59 feet, basically 60 feet long. So technically right now, Vhagar is supposed to be bigger than Smaug, but Balerion was bigger than Vhagar. Most of the estimations for Balerion's height is due to this quote that he could swallow an entire mammoth whole. That could be an exaggeration, but if that was to be the case, somebody estimated he would probably be like 516 feet long. Most of this is just going to be guesstimations because we don't really
swallow a mammoth whole day.
They have anything too official. Hell, some people in their calculations even calculate Balerion to be larger than Smaug. In my opinion, I feel like after everything I've looked at, they're probably relative in length. But if you guys know of any sources that can give more accurate descriptions of them, then I can try to go from there and see.
Hey, did you know that Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings is actually an allegory for Jesus? Let me explain. So in The Lord of the Rings, Gandalf was sent by the Maiar to help the forces of the West, mirroring how Jesus was sent by God in the Bible. From there, Gandalf sacrifices himself fighting the Balrog, further giving our heroes a fighting chance. But his mission wasn't complete, so he's resurrected, symbolized by him wearing white. And these aren't just surface level comparisons, the deeper themes of the story are actually the same here. The Astari were told never to rule. Their job wasn't to take over Middle-earth with their power, it was to help humanity learn to rule itself. And it's because of that that both of their stories end the same. They peacefully ascend once their mission is complete. Follow for more Lord of the Rings content.
Yo, there's a little bit of validity there, I ain't gonna lie. Just a little bit, man. Might be at Lord of the Rings. Might have a little allegory in there, man. The dragons, You know, the giants, they throw it right in our face. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.
Is it okay for Christians to watch Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and Harry Potter? When it comes to Lord of the Rings, considering that J.R.R. Tolkien is a Christian, and he also inspired C.S. Lewis, who wrote Narnia and led him to Christ, definitely yes. And I would put Hobbit in that category as well. And being that I finally watched all of Harry Potter, though I haven't read it, and from what I've seen, there's a lot of Christian undertone within that series as well. So I would say yes, but let's point something out here. You see, it's not clear if J.K. Rowling is a Christian. But what all of these series have in common is the use of magic. And one of the biggest misses I've seen from the Christian community in content like this is not taking advantage of that to share the gospel with people who get into it, and instead rejecting it. And in us rejecting it, we leave it as a tool for the enemy to use and captivate the world, versus leading them to Jesus. So I think we need to do a better job of getting ahead of these types of things.
As a kid, I've always been fascinated by this movie, and this movie has captured the essence of what it means of the means of masculinity in the form of Aragorn, and the fact that he harnessed it very articulately gives me chills, because when he goes to war in the Return of the King, he says this speech.
Not this day. An hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand. Men of the West.
His speech, I don't know if you guys feel the same, but it gets me all the time. Makes me feel empowered, and it teaches you a lesson too to have faith.
If you think Shelob was big, you have to see the biggest spider ever lived in Middle-earth. Ungoliant, mother of all spiders. She was a primordial, evil, and darkest being on Middle-earth. She destroyed the 2 trees of Valinor and consumed their light, plunged the world into darkness. Even the real Dark Lord, Morgoth himself, was overpowered by Ungoliant. She fought with Morgoth. At the end, Balrog saved Morgoth from Ungoliant's grasp. If you think Shelob was big, you have...
Hey, I might have to read that. That sounds out cold. You got the Balrog. Y'all know what a Balrog is? Let me show you. But anyway, you got the ancient Balrogs. All the Balrogs trying to fight her. That would be nuts.
What is a Balrog in 60 seconds or less? Balrogs were originally Maya, angelic spirits created before the beginning of the world by Eru Ilúvatar. Some of the Maya that took physical form were corrupted by Melkor, the original Big Bad, and joined his rebellion against Eru Ilúvatar. The word Balrog translates to demon of might or power. After their corruption at the hand of Melkor, they took the shape of monstrous humanoid fire beasts, shrouded in shadow and flame. They are described to have streaming fiery manes and vast wings of shadow. Balrogs wielded flaming swords and whips, and the lord of the Balrogs, Gothmog, used a great black axe. Balrogs were fierce creatures, powerful beyond human, dwarvish, and most elven warriors. The Balrog we see in The Lord of the Rings was known as Durin's Bane, and single-handedly drove the dwarves from their greatest kingdom, Khazad-dûm. So that's what is a Balrog in 60 seconds or less. Balrogs were...
You mean to tell me they got one of these guys carrying an axe? That would be kind of smooth. I want to see that. What they coming out with that? Imagine Bell. Come out with that axe. You better look out.
In Lord of the Rings, the Balrogs were originally Maiar, enticed by Melkor's strength to join his campaign. Their initial residence was in Utumno, the impregnable stronghold of Thangorodrim. However, after their commander's defeat in the war for the sake of the elves, the Balrogs and other servants of Melkor retreated to Angband and lay dormant. The Balrogs often took on a towering, ominous appearance, comprised of darkness and fire. Their weapons were ablaze, both a flaming sword and a fiery whip. The lord of the Balrogs in the First Age, Gothmog, also employed a black axe. One particular Balrog, known as Durin's Bane, triumphed in expelling the dwarves from their ancient and impenetrable stronghold of Khazad-dûm, which had been the most significant dwarf kingdom of all time. Furthermore, it contended with Gandalf, and the two foes perished in the struggle.
If you think Durin's Bane was cool, you have to see Lord of all Balrogs. Gothmog, Lord of Balrog's High Captain of Angband. He was the greatest Balrog ever to walk Middle-earth. His only equal in rank was Sauron. He fought many battles in the name of his master Morgoth. Like the rest of his kind, he carried a fiery whip into battle, but was also known for wielding a great black axe. He was feared by elves, men and dwarves across the Middle-earth. If you think Durin's Bane was cool, you have to see Lord of all Balrogs. Gothmog, Lord of Balrog's High Captain.
How hard is Lord of the Rings lore? Look at this. Dude carrying an axe. What? This is the Balrog leader? Oh my goodness.
Middle-earth. His only equal in rank was Sauron. He fought many battles in the name of his master Morgoth. Like the rest of his kind, he carried a fiery whip into battle, but was also known for wielding a great black axe. He was feared by elves, men and dwarves across the Middle-earth. If you think
why would you stop something like that?
What is this new devilry?
What would happen if the Balrog took the One Ring? What would happen if the Balrog took the One Ring?
Are you out of your mind? Why would you even think that? Y'all out cold.
What would happen if...
I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun!
Oh, he's got the horn too. What's that called? The ram horn to open up the gateways. I'm telling you, man, there's so many similarities. It's ridiculous.
Greetings, dear viewers. I, Gandalf the Grey, extend my warmest welcome as I embark on a journey through time to unravel the rich history of the formidable Balrogs. Let us delve into the annals of forgotten ages and uncover their origins. In the distant, unrecorded epochs of antiquity, the Balrogs emerged as fiery Maiar, ancient spirits of great power. Captivated by Melkor's awe-inspiring might and grandeur, these fiery beings were enticed to align themselves with his cause. Their initial abode found form within Utumno, the impenetrable fortress nestled beneath the peaks of Thangorodrim. However, as the war for the sake of the elves unfurled, Melkor, their master, faced a resounding defeat. In the wake of this cataclysmic event, the Balrogs, along with other fell creatures that served under Melkor's dark banner, fled the ruins of Utumno. Seeking refuge, they sought solace within the treacherous stronghold known as Angband, where they entered a deep slumber, dormant and awaiting the call of their malevolent lord. Such is the tapestry of the Balrog's lineage, their journey entwined with the tumultuous annals of the ages. Stay tuned as we uncover further chapters in their chronicles, illuminating the depths of their power and the shadow they cast upon the world. From the earliest days when the trees of Valinor bathed the world in their gentle light, the shadowy presence of the Balrogs loomed. Even then, while Melkor, the treacherous Vala, and Ungoliant, the monstrous spider, conspired to bring ruin to the blessed realm of Valinor, the Balrogs remained ensconced.
That thing was ugly. Did y'all see that? Ugh. Ugh.
Remained ensconced within the depths of Angband's desolate pits, and thus concludes this captivating video. However, my dear viewers, do not fret, for the journey is far from over. Stay tuned, for I shall soon unveil the second part, brimming with more intrigue and excitement. But before we part ways, I'm eager to hear your thoughts on the story thus far. Your feedback is invaluable to me, so please share your opinions in the comment section below. Your engagement fuels my passion to create compelling content. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, take care and stay tuned. Greetings, I am Gandalf the Grey, and I welcome you to the second part of the enthralling tale of Balrogs. When Melkor unleashed his unholy wrath upon the two trees, shrouding Valinor in darkness and despair, the Balrogs lay dormant in their ancient abode. But the cataclysmic destruction wrought by Melkor and Ungoliant beckoned them forth from their slumber. Fueled by a great cry of anguish from their malevolent master, the Balrogs emerged from the abyss, their fiery presence kindled by a tempest of raging flames. Ungoliant, driven by her insatiable hunger for power, dared to assail Morgoth in her hubris. In the face of this treachery, the Balrogs answered their master's call, their fiery might surging forth to confront the monstrous spider. With their formidable power, they unleashed a relentless assault, driving Ungoliant from their midst. The pursuit of the wretched creature seemed imminent, but Morgoth in his cunning intervened and called his fiery minions back, bidding them to return to Angband's dark embrace. In the aftermath of this harrowing encounter, Angband, the dark fortress of Morgoth, rose anew from the ruins, casting its sinister shadow over the land once more. The Balrogs, now reawakened and fully devoted to their dark master, awaited his command, ready to execute his malevolent will and spread fear throughout Middle-earth. The story of the Balrogs, entwined with the tumultuous tale of Morgoth's dominion, continues to unfold. And thus we reach the culmination of this captivating journey into the realm of the Balrog. As we conclude this video, I am eager to hear your thoughts and insights on these enigmatic creatures of darkness. Please do share your impressions and reflections in the comments section below.
He's spitting, ain't he?
Promise you all a video on Ungoliant, the gargantuan primordial spider of darkness and the greatest terror in all of Arda. The origin and true nature of Ungoliant is unclear. Some say she's a Maya, some say she was corrupted by Melkor, but I prefer the third theory, that she is the manifestation of the very darkness of Arda itself. A being born from the primordial darkness who took the form of a giant spider and had an insatiable and ravenous hunger for light. In the early days of the First Age, Ungoliant made her home in Avathar in the south of Valinor, back when the world was flat. Yep, you heard me right, Tolkien's Earth used to be flat. Here she would spin webs of darkness that would capture light, but there's a reason Ungoliant's name lives in infamy throughout Tolkien's work. Melkor, the greatest of the Ainur, in his undying hatred of the light, would travel to Avathar to ally Ungoliant to his cause. He promised her light beyond measure on which she could feed. And so from within herself, Ungoliant weaved a shroud of unlight, a darkness so deep and terrible that no light could ever pierce it. Even Manwë himself, the king of the Valar, second only to Melkor, could not pierce this light. Shrouded in unlight, Melkor and Ungoliant travelled to the two trees of Valinor, Laurelin and Telperion. Here Morgoth took his sword to the trees and opened up their veins to Ungoliant, who put her fangs to the trees and drew the light and life out of them. What you have to understand is that these two trees were the only source of light in the entire world. Ungoliant drained them and then drank the wells of Vardar dry too, leaving the entire world in crushing darkness. But Melkor wasn't done. He then stole the Silmarils. The Silmarils were 3 jewels which contained the light of the two trees, forged by the greatest elven smith of all time, Feanor. Melkor also stole several lesser gems and murdered Feanor's father Finwë in cold blood. The actions of this day would forever brand Melkor as Morgoth. Morgoth and Ungoliant fled, however Ungoliant, having devoured all the light in the world, grew to a gargantuan size. But still she hungered, and she demanded the jewels from Morgoth. Morgoth, who was starting to fear her immense size, gave her the lesser jewels. Having grown even greater, Ungoliant now demanded the Silmarils, which Morgoth refused. Ungoliant attacked him, wrapping him in webs of darkness. This caused Morgoth, the greatest of the Ainur, to scream in pain and fear. A scream that was heard by his servants, the Balrogs of Thangorodrim, who rose to help him. The fiery whips of multiple Balrogs was enough to drive Ungoliant away, who fled to Nan Dungortheb. Here she mated with several lesser spiders and created great horrors, including Shelob, one of the greatest terrors of the Third Age. But what happened to Ungoliant? No one knows. Some say in her ravenous and insatiable hunger, Ungoliant devoured herself. Or perhaps the great mother of spiders, born from the primordial darkness of Arda, returned to that darkness from whence she came.
Look up Ungoliant, the greatest spider. What is that? Hey, yo, what? Bro, what is going on with the Lord of the Rings? What is up with these creatures in y'all universe? So you're telling me that Ungoliant is apparently some like primordial spirit that took the form of this disgusting massive spider? Ah, you can't make this up. No, this is actually ridiculous. What is up with all these mountain towering beasts in this freaking book series? Like, I vaguely remember a spider being in, I believe, either the third or second movie, but it was nothing close to this. Like, what is your reaction to seeing this? Like, what do you do? Because spiders are insanely fast, so you can't outrun this thing. And there's not even really an explanation of where Ungoliant came from. She just appeared and instantly started getting on bullshit. And if being a giant, disgusting looking spider wasn't bad enough, she apparently has magic. Her magic was so powerful that when she descended these mountains and began wrapping them in her dark black web, they actually were able to suck up all light in the region. Not only did she suck up all the light in the region, no light was able to enter her region. It was just pitch black. What's really crazy to me is the fact that she was apparently eating the light and she was still hungry. Yeah, I see why you call this the greatest spider. She is a problem. Look up Ungoliant, the greatest spider. What is that? Hey!
This is the story of Middle-earth's most terrifying monster. It is unknown where Ungoliant had come from, or what she truly was. It is thought by some that she came from the outside of the bounds of the world, from the Great Void, though her true origins are a mystery. She went to the Blessed Realm, where she founded her lair and took the form of a great spider, sucking the very light of her surroundings, put her into conflict with the Valar. She allied with Melkor, and when the Valar were distracted, Melkor's plans went into motion, and the two descended upon the two trees of Valinor.
In this verses, we have Ungoliant, a terrifyingly powerful creature from the void who took the form of a giant spider and who is the mother of Shelob, versus Ancalagon the Black, the largest and most powerful dragon to ever have lived, who was also the last hope of Morgoth's forces during the War of Wrath. Not even the Valar knew exactly where Ungoliant came from, but after she entered Arda, she aligned herself with Morgoth until he was captured, and after he was released, he enlisted her help again in evading the Valar, destroying the two trees of Valinor, and stealing the Silmarils. Ancalagon the Black was created by Morgoth and released with the first of the winged dragons. He was Morgoth's trump card to counter the attacks of the Valar, Maiar, and Elves. Prior to that, he lay hidden, growing immense and strong, until he was finally unleashed during the War of Wrath. Ungoliant is extremely powerful and durable, and she can devour anything, and when she devours powerful things, she can grow not only in size but in power as well. She can shapeshift, and she can shoot out extremely strong webbing, and she can also shoot webs of shadow so she can walk unseen. Ancalagon the Black was ridiculously large and strong. He had claws, teeth, and armored scales, and a powerful tail, but if that wasn't enough, he could also fly. But his greatest attribute was that he could breathe fire, the hottest fire of any dragon ever. Some of Ungoliant's greatest feats were sucking up the sap and light from the two trees of Valinor and killing them, and then creating great webs of shadow and evading the Valar, and then finally attacking Morgoth and trapping him in her webs and nearly killing him until the Balrogs came to his aid. Some of Ancalagon's greatest feats were pushing back the entire host of the Valar, Maiar, and Elves and changing the tide of the war, then battling Eärendil, who possessed the Silmaril and came with the Eagles of Manwë, battling him for an entire day, even in his death, falling and breaking the three mountainous peaks of the Thangorodrim in his ruin. In conclusion, if these two characters were to fight, I declare that your winner would be Ungoliant, the giant spider and creature from the void. My reasons for giving Ungoliant the victory are these. She has stealth on her side. She can surround herself in shadow and disappear. Now, although Ancalagon can fly, he's going to have to come in close to try to secure the victory. That's when she's going to pop out, she's going to bite and poison him, then she's going to wrap him up in her webbing. She's going to start to devour him, and the more she devours, the larger and stronger she grows. Now, if Morgoth couldn't escape from her webbing, Ancalagon's not going to be able to escape from her webbing. So, your victor is Ungoliant, the mother of Shelob. In this verses, we have Ungoliant.
Or the dragon just went crazy and just started breathing fire everywhere and caught her. You know, that might have did it too. Just burned the whole entire area of the fire. Just...
Who is Shelob's mother? And how did she die?
Wait a second. Are those both questions, or is that one question? There's two parts.
And then Billy has
That's three questions. Well, Shelob's mother is Ungoliant, okay? And she died by consuming herself in her own webs of darkness.
He's got it! Who?
I just learned about Ungoliant. They need to drop a movie of that. That would be out cold.
Remember Shelob from Lord of the Rings? Meet her mummy, Ungoliant. Remember Shelob from Lord of the Rings?
Let me know in the comments who you guys think will win.
Ungoliant. I'm dead.
It looks like we are getting another Lord of the Rings live-action movie. It is being written as we speak. Peter Jackson is involved in every step as a producer, which is good to hear. It's going to explore storylines yet to be told, and it's set to release in 2026. But wait, more information literally just dropped like 3 seconds ago. The movie is going to be titled The Hunt for Gollum. Andy Serkis will direct and star as Gollum. Peter Jackson is going to produce, like I said earlier, but what in the actual hell is going on here? Out of everything that I thought they could have been making, I was like, oh, maybe the Rise of Sauron, or maybe a Gandalf story or something. Well, let's go back. Let's go back before the war starts. We can get into what starts the war, or like what's going on during the war, the beef between the dwarves and the elves. There's so much we can go into. My brain wasn't even thinking about Gollum. That was the last thing on my fucking brain was Gollum. What is going on? This is the idea we had? This is the idea we've come up with? Movie? Are we okay? Is this serious? Am I being trolled? Am I being punked? How are we feeling about this? Are we excited? Am I tripping? What the?
It really bothers me when I see comments like this, because it's a misinterpretation or misunderstanding by the reader, and I can see how it can happen, but it just bothers the crap out of me. Ungoliant isn't stronger than Melkor. So what happened is Melkor slayed the 2 trees. He took his spear and stabbed the 2 trees, okay? Now, when the sap from the 2 trees came out, all that light and power from the gods from Yavanna came out. And Ungoliant is the one who sucked it up. She absorbed it and she became bigger. At that point, she was stronger than Melkor because he had put in work, killed Finwë, stole the Silmarils, fled. And then she got all the power from the trees after he slayed them. So she was stronger for that little bit of time when he did that. But naturally, she's not stronger than him. She lost to the Balrog, she fled, and then she actually devoured herself because she can't maintain that power. She has to keep absorbing light things. That's why she's still hungered after she even absorbed that. So she's not naturally stronger than Melkor, no. it really bothers me when.
And the fact that Ungoliant still might be alive in Lord of the Rings. So that's crazy. Might make an appearance in one of those movies, man. That would go crazy.
In The Lord of the Rings, similar to what the Nazgul are to Sauron, the Balrogs were Morgoth's most feared and loyal servants. Balrogs were originally Maiar, lesser Ainur, who were created by Eru Ilúvatar before the shaping of the world. As Maiar, they were spirits of great power and wisdom. However, they were corrupted and seduced by Melkor, later known as Morgoth, the first Dark Lord. Balrogs are described as towering figures wreathed in shadow and flame, with fiery whips and an aura of terror, and exude an overwhelming sense of dread and darkness. During the First Age, Balrog served as generals and enforcers in Morgoth's armies. They played crucial roles in many of the battles of Beleriand against the elves and their allies. The most famous Balrog is Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs, who was Morgoth's chief lieutenant and led his forces in several key battles, including the Dagor Bragolak and the fall of Gondolin. The most famous Balrog in the Third Age is Durin's Bane, which took up residence in the depths of Moria until it was finally defeated by Gandalf.
In the Mines of Moria, after the Balrog drags Gandalf down deep into the mountain, they end up fighting at the top of a peak. What exactly happened in between? They both initially fall for a long time, and Gandalf is burned by the fires of the Balrog. They eventually fall into a dark lake far beneath the mountain that Gandalf said was cold as the tide of death. They fight in the lake for a while until the Balrog flees from Gandalf through ancient tunnels gnawed by creatures that had been there before Sauron ever came to Middle-earth. Gandalf chases after the Balrog through the tunnels and up the endless stairs, which were thousands of steps carved by the dwarfs going from deep in the mountain all the way to the top of a peak called Zirak Zigil. On this peak above the clouds, the dwarfs had carved into the rock to create Durin's Tower, and this is where they fight. The Battle of the Peak lasts 2 days and 2 nights until eventually the Balrog is brought down by the wizard. All the events from the Bridge of Khazad-dûm to the end of this fight takes 10 days. After the battle, of course, a bunch of things happen and he comes back as Gandalf the White, but that's a story for another day, full of more fantasy content.
Damn, the fight for 10 days? That is nuts. Gandalf. That you really shouldn't pass. I was fighting for a week. Man, I love this episode. I'm a fan of Lord of the Rings, so I really want to dive in and see the similarities of the dragon. Words of encouragement in the comments really help me out for this video, man. We done drop a banger. Keep it up.